We got some terrain again here on the channel, and this is quite a bit of terrain. A whole really big box of MDF laser cut terrain, and I mean, good lord, look at that. Can't even fit it all on camera. I just dropped the lid. So this is from Spartan Games, who went out of business about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit less. Picked this up at a swap meet because I like me pieces and putting them together. So this has a hell of a lot of pieces. What do we have here? We got 4 corridors, 1 X junction, 1 cross junction, 2 hex rooms, 2 hex hubs, 1 large room, 6 doors, 4 end caps, 3 acrylic control panels, and 45 detail panels. Apparently it makes this. I guess we're gonna find out eventually. 28 to 32 millimeter scale, easy to assemble. Liars. And highly modular system. So we're gonna put this together and paint it up, hopefully. This is MDF, and MDF is a pain in the butt to work with. It is such a pain in the butt that I was actually going to do a video on how to paint this stuff about a year or two ago, and you never saw it because I never finished it because I kind of screwed it up. Actually, I think it was more like 2 to 3 years ago. I've learned a bit more how to work with MDF. Main issue is the painting, which we'll get into eventually. Since this is a wood product, you have to be cautious about what type of paints and how you paint it, so you don't end up, you know, having the wood come up and everything get all fuzzy. It's very, very absorbent. So, first thing I'm going to do, well, there's a couple different ways you can do this. This has so many parts. I'm going to take everything off the sprue first before painting. You can actually paint it directly on the, I'm calling it a sprue. Let's just go with that. But the whole panel, you could like spray paint this and then put it together, which is actually how Foreground does their MDF terrain, and it actually looks really good because they just, I don't know, spray it or run a roller across it, and then they cut it out and it has a nice little burnt edge around it, which gives it a little bit of shading. I really like that look, but because I have so much here, I don't want to paint everything first. I kind of want to take everything apart and see what exactly we got, and then we'll get into the painting. So first thing I got to do, we're going to go through and punch all this out. Most of these pieces will pop out fairly easily. I hope. If I can do one on camera here. Well, I got the center out. It's connected with tiny little tabs here and there. Occasionally you'll have to use an X-Acto knife to pull those, cut those, so you can pull the piece out a little bit easier. But this is, well, I was about to say used terrain, but I got it at a swap meet, and I was told that some of the pieces weren't cut correctly, and I'm not sure how bad the issue is, but I may have to do some a little bit more severe sawing to get some of these pieces out. Haven't started yet, so I haven't come across them, but we'll find out. So let's cut to a whole giant, nice, neat stack of pieces. I hope. Look at this mess. This is about a third of this kit. And I have a whole bunch more off to the side here, and I got a whole bunch more still to cut out. So, if you've ever been intimidated by MDF, I really don't. This is unusual because this is gonna be a pretty massive one. A building or something, just so a single building, is not gonna have this many issues. However, I think I've learned at least one reason why Spartan Games went out of business, because if this is an example of their quality control, they had some major problems. Yeah, I knew buying this that some of the pieces were not cut out correctly, but I didn't know it was this bad. I've already cleaned up most of them. You can see this one is kind of a little funky here. That's because it was not, the laser didn't go all the way through the wood. They didn't even try. It was just solid wood all here. So I had to cut this out the best I could. Pretty crappy. It's not that easy cutting MDF with the limited amount of tools that I had. I tried using clippers. That didn't work too well because it was separating the fibers, so I actually had to go to the Dremel using the razor blade saw thing and also a side cutter. I think this is a tile cutter. and that kept the fibers together. But I also still have a lot of pieces that are, oh, here's one right here. Like here, that's a good example. You can see it's not cut out all the way, like on this side, and that's not cut out all the way. That's mainly cosmetic. I'm not going to try to cut all these out because there's a whole bunch of those pieces that are like this. Hopefully, I doubt it, but hopefully some of these will be extras, and so I can just leave them out. But then I also had, there it is, like this major top piece here, which was not cut out at all, and so did a real shoddy job of getting this connected. Hopefully this will butt up against something, and I can do a little putty work or something to hide that. But yeah, Spartan Games, I'd yell at them if they still existed. So, just want to give you a little picture of what's going on right now, because I need to start bagging this stuff and organizing it, because I am literally out of desk space. I got 4 feet of desk here and 4 feet of desk to my right, and it's all covered with wood terrain, and I still got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 12 more sheets still to cut out. So I need to clean up a little bit. 2 damn days I've been doing nothing but gluing together MDF. I am completely surrounded by tiny little buildings at this moment. And I just looked up at the clock. It's 10:30. I started my second day at about 1 o'clock gluing this damn stuff together. But it's finally all together. So yeah, I got 1, 2, and then we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got 10 buildings. 10 bloody buildings all together. And I was initially couldn't decide whether if I wanted to paint everything first and put it all together, but after test fitting some items, I realized the fit on this is so hard, so tight, that if I painted it first, I would not have been able to put it together. So went ahead and started putting everything together first. To glue it together on the areas where I did need glue, some areas like on the railings, they're so tight, not really worrying about that. But I did need glue for a few areas, so I decided to go with Turbo Tacky glue. Would have preferred to use wood glue, because that's a little bit lower, has less water in it, and it's less likely to cause the MDF to puff out. But I couldn't find my wood glue, and I refused to buy more until I find the bottle I know I already have somewhere. But we got all sorts of different buildings here. I'm leaving the roofs off so you can get inside of them. And the only major problem I had was with this little son of a bitch here. This one has very few supports on the inside. Basically, just it's 4 of these sticks here, and you got to put these little panels on, and here and here. There's not a really good connector point to them, so and I just see I got a big old nasty glob of glue there that I missed, because I had to squirt in a hell of a lot of glue just to make the connectors here. So that's going to take a little extra cleanup. I didn't notice. But yeah, this was the biggest pain in the butt. And the other big pain in the butt is there's no instructions for this stuff. Damn Spartan Games. Yeah, all I could find was a 1-page instruction online, and they don't even show you all the pieces or how to put things together. It's just literally one picture from one side, and some of the buildings that aren't matched, like a square, one side is the same as the other. I couldn't figure out how to put it together. Part of that was my mistake of taking all the pieces off the sprue at the same time. I should have went sprue by sprue and started putting things together. Would have helped a little bit, but still, terrible, terrible instructions. And some of these areas like this I can never figure out, because on the instructions it shows this as a solid wall, not as a door, but after putting everything else together, I had no solid pieces there to take care of this, so that obviously is supposed to be another door. Speaking of doors, we got lots of opening doors. I think I got like 11 of them. And one of the door pieces was not cut, and I could not cut myself, but I did have an extra a door set as well, which has some clear pieces to it, and that's not glued. I got to glue that one on. Pardon. And also I got all this and this. these are all detail pieces. This I understand. You're just supposed to glue this on random spots on the inside to detail it up. These I don't understand as much. I think these are all supposed to be detail pieces, but they really don't fit inside very well. It just doesn't work. And also, even on their official photos, archived from Spartan Games, they don't use these pieces either. So even the company that made these doesn't like using them. That's always a good sign. So anyway, gotta do some sanding here. We're gonna sand some of the areas that will need it, mainly on the railings here. Just a metal file, so I'm gonna do that now. That'll take me another couple hours. Clean everything off. Use a can of air, blow off all the dust. Then we can start working on the painting. Now, MDF is a pain in the butt to paint, mainly because the wood is so porous, it absorbs whatever you paint on it. If you just start painting acrylic paint, it's just gonna suck up all the paint and it's gonna start getting fuzzy and puffy. So we need to seal it first. A couple different ways to do that, but we are using shellac. Shellac is a super glossy coat, like a varnish, essentially. It does penetrate a bit better than a varnish. So after cleaning all this up, we're going to give it a couple coats of shellac, and then this is going to be super glossy. Paint's not going to stick to it that great, so after the shellac is on, we are going to apply our primer. And again, don't want to go with acrylics, just to be on the safe side. I don't know what this is. I think this is oil or enamel base. I cannot find out on... Oh, hey, oh, there it is. Enamel. Aha. Oh, wait, that's not enamel. That's the paints they're recommending afterwards. Anyway, pretty sure it's not acrylic. So luckily I got this in a gray color and not black, because I'm going to be using this as a shade color. Black would be a little bit too harsh for what I planned. So a couple coats of shellac, a couple coats of primer. For the most part, I'm not going to be able to get this in all the nooks and crannies, but at least it's a start. So let's get going. I was planning on showing you some paint right now, or painting, but that didn't happen. I'm out of the colors that I need, so I'm jumping ahead and doing some masking. Yes, I am masking this to make it even more detailed. Let me jump back a little bit though. We shellacked everything. 2 cans of shellac I went through. And then I can't remember if I told you or not, but I used Auto Body spray primer, dark gray, and that's going to be one of our colors we're going to leave on here. 2.5 cans of that. And then after that, did a little bit of sanding with a little cut bit of sanding sponge to cut down on some of the fuzz that was here and there and along the sides. Could have done that ahead of time, but I was a bit lazy, so I just did it afterwards, so the areas that needed sanding would stand out more. So we got a fairly smooth paint job here now because of the sanding. So anyway, to the masking now. You have all these little rib detail panels that I'm going to leave the dark gray primer color. And so using Tamiya tape for that. I would prefer to use painter's tape. Unfortunately, painter's tape is too opaque. And the Tamiya tape, as you can see, is a little bit see-through. So put it on. Wax carving tool, something to burnish it in the grooves with, and then you just have to follow easy to follow panel lines and go down and proceed to cut everything out like yaw. So I'm gonna do this on a couple pieces. I'm trying to do like 4 buildings at a time, because trying to airbrush everything at once, all one color, then go back to the beginning. I have like 30 plus pieces to paint, so I'm gonna try to do this in sections. So we'll start painting this once I go to the hobby store and get them colors that I need. And let's jump to the airbrush booth, pretend it's the same day. So we're finally ready to get some paint on this sucker finally. And I'm starting off with a real big piece so you can see easier inside what I'm doing. Some of the smaller pieces I already started working on. Little difficult kind of spray in there at that angle. So better, easier example here. Like I said at the beginning, at some point, we don't want to use acrylics because they can have an adverse effect on MDF. So wanted to use enamels, but I really don't like airbrushing those, especially when I have to airbrush so much. So decided to try Tamiya's acrylics, which are kind of alcohol, which are actually synthetic lacquer, but they dry quickly, so it shouldn't affect the wood. And we're going to start on the interior, and we're using brown, I don't have my glasses on, JGSDF. Oh, hey, I got it. Anyway, it's a XF72. I'm kind of following what was on the box art for this, but we're going to start painting and give me a coat of brown over the whole thing. This is just the first coat. The main portion we have to worry about is I want to try to leave these little braces here the dark gray color that we originally used on from the primer. So I want to get really close and try to paint those without hitting those areas, and it's kind of difficult. Hang on, I gotta put this down. It's kind of difficult because the interior, trying to get inside with the airbrush, it's a little tight. It's a bit easier on this model. And I could be doing this a little bit cleaner, but I got a lot of these buildings to paint, so there is going to be some overspray. But ideally we want to leave this dark gray and then also leave a little bit kind of a shadow area around them. So let me put this first coat down, then we'll go next to the next coat. The next color we are using is Desert Yellow. And we are starting off with all these little hexagons in here, starting off by giving them a little burst of color in the center. So, and then I'll do the walls eventually, but once all that's done, go back over and give a more general coat over the whole floor to lighten up everything. So because the centers have more layers of lighter paint on it, they're going to stand out a lot more. So that will be about it for the interior.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mama Jama.